everyone. I'm Raíssa and I'm bringing you now a new podcast of the blog Softball Now. This Saturday afternoon in Natal, we have some rain. The temperature is about 24 degrees Celsius, but we have some rain. Finally, the winter has appeared around here, but we know that spring is coming, so it's the final countdown for winter, but at least now we have some experience of what we say is cold, but it's not really cold around here, but cold because the temperature is always high in Natal. Well, today we're going to talk about this foreign effort because a friend of mine that is living now in the USA and used to be an English teacher around here. She sent me a post of the Huffington Post. In fact, it's not a post of the Huffington Post. It is, but it's a report that was published by a website called Quartz. And this post was about, that's the title, How Non-English Speakers Are Taught This Crazy English Grammar Rule You Know But Have Never Heard Of. And it's funny because it's about when you are native of a country and you know some language since you are born, sometimes you do some things and you speak some things and you write some things, but you've never heard that there is a rule about what you write and saying and speaking. And when you are a foreign person, when this language is your second language, is not your natural language, then you have to learn that really meticulously. You have to learn it like rule by rule. So it's really hard work for non-native. And when you talk about these rules, if you are a foreign person and you talk about these rules to a native, then it's a kind of a shock, like, what? I've never heard about that. I can give you a very simple example, that is the adjectives. For example, if you are a Brazilian person and you study English, certainly the first thing you heard of in your first class from your teacher is that when you write a sentence, the adjectives, they come before the noun. And you know that you say, for example, oh, that's a beautiful day. So we have first beautiful, that's the adjective, and then we have the noun day. But if you ask this to a native speaker of English, if you ask this to an American, they're going to say, what? An adjective comes before a noun? No, I've never heard about that. And then if you ask this same person to write a list of words that they only write before, or they only say, or they only use, let's say that they only use before other ones, they're going to write first a list of adjectives, and then they're going to write the list of nouns to be the ones that we use at the end or after the adjectives. So it's kind of something magic when you ask a native speaker of English about this, because they've never heard about this rule, but they know how to use it. And this happens in every language. For example, here in Brazil, if you ask a native, how do we use the presente do indicativo, that's something like the simple present in English, they're going to say, wow, I don't know, I think we use this for things that are happening now. No, of course we don't use this for things that are happening now, because that would be something continuous, right? We use the presente indicativo, and in English it's the simple present, and that's the same shock for English speakers too. We use them for habits. So you want to express an action that happens with a certain frequency, then we use the simple present or presente indicativo. In Portuguese, for example, if you want to talk about the habit that you have of singing, you say eu canto. In English, you would say I sing. So, but you never think of these rules because you are not taught this way. You are born and you start learning by paying attention to what your parents are saying, and then you start repeating them, and you know, like you know the essence of the thing, but you've never heard about the rules. And of course you know how to use it. For example, I can't remember one person in one time in Brazil that made a mistake about the presente indicativo. And not in English. I can't remember a person in English that made a mistake about the simple present. But they don't know how to explain, and they don't know how to explain how to use that because it sounds so natural to them, like, wow, you don't have to learn that. You only know that. And that is really funny. And this post that I was reading, that this teacher sent me, Isadora is her name, and I really like her, and we talk sometimes through Facebook. And she sent me this report, this post of the Huffington Post. Is about a guy that he posted on his Twitter part of a book in English saying the order that adjectives have to be when you pronounce them or you use them with nouns. So the order is opinion, size, age, shape, color, origin, material, and purpose, and then you say noun. And we have an example of this in that post, in that picture that says, so you can have a lovely little old rectangular green French silver whittling knife. And then the post continues, but if you mess with that word order in the slightest, you sound like a maniac. It's another thing that every English speaker uses that list, but almost none of us could write it out. And as size comes before color, green great dragons can exist, yes, because we say great green dragons. So people sometimes are shocked because if you talk to someone that learned English as a second language, these people, they know these orders because we have to study them. And someone that saw this Twitter post of this guy, Matthew, I forgot his name now, Matthew Anderson of BBC, this guy, someone that saw this just sent him a copy of a page that he used to study, this grammar that he used to study that was published by Cambridge University Press, explaining exactly this. Adjectives, what is the order? How you have to say a nice new house and not a new nice house. And adjectives after verbs, it's the same lesson, saying, for example, you look tired. But the part that is interesting to us here is this part of the order of adjectives. And then the lesson says, and every foreign student of English knows this, that sometimes when we use two or more adjectives together, we have to put them in order. So first, we use the opinion adjectives, and then we use the fact adjectives. For example, we say a nice new house because new is a fact. The house was, for example, recently built. And nice is an opinion because I could think of the house that is nice, that is ugly or something like that. So nice comes first because it is opinion. And the grammar continues saying when we have more than two adjectives, then we have to ask some questions so we can organize these adjectives before a noun. For example, how big, how old, what color, where from, what is it made of. And I remember when I was a student a long time ago, a student of English, that I had this, the first time that I saw this order of adjectives, I had to memorize, and that's it, we have to memorize. Foreign people have to memorize. I had to memorize that the order was size, color, material. I remember we had a lesson about clothes, and we had to describe clothes. So we had to get some order for the adjectives. So first size, then color, then material, and then the clothes. For example, I would say large green nylon shorts because I say first large, that's the size. I then say the color, green. Then I say the material, nylon. And finally, the piece of clothes, shorts. So we can have large green nylon shorts. When I also learned about how to describe people, and a very important part of describing people is to describe hair. And that's difficult because you have to organize them too. You have to organize the adjectives by size, shape, color. So you can have long, curly, dark hair. You can't mess with that. So first the size, it's long, it's short. Then the shape, it's curly, it's straight. Color, is it dark? Is it blonde? Is it red? Is it brown? And then you say hair. So these things, they come to foreign people as rules, but native people, they don't learn these rules. They just know the order is this. If you say something out of order, then they are going to correct you, or they won't understand you depending on the order of the adjectives. For example, in this example that this guy from BBC used, it will be completely crazy if you mess with this lovely little old rectangular green French silver whittling knife. It would come like something out of mind, crazy. No one would understand that. And it is obvious to us. But we have other expressions too that is common, that we have some order. Not only adjectives, but words that come in a certain order. For example, when you are addressing to the audience, everybody say ladies and gentlemen. It's first ladies and then gentlemen. No one messes with this order. Even in Brazil, in Portuguese, the order is the same. Of course, we use the words in Portuguese, but we start with the word that addresses to the women, and then we go to the word that addresses to the men. Other expressions that we use, like bread and butter. In Portuguese, it's almost the same, because here we say bread with butter. But it's this order, bread and butter. When we talk about two people, a boy and a girl that are called John and Mary, we say John and Mary. We don't say Mary and John. And that's the same in Portuguese too. We can also say that in English, the problem is that John is one syllable and Mary is a two-syllable word. But in Portuguese, João and Maria, they are almost the same size. So we don't have that question to explain that. It's just a question of order. It's how we use it. We don't know how to explain. When we talk about boys and girls, it's always boys and girls. We don't say girls and boys. It's not common. So even in Portuguese, in English, we have this kind of orders for our words, not only adjectives. We don't know how they start. Only when you are a foreign person studying, you have to work hard to understand this. But we use these words in a certain order, and we don't mess with this order, because if we mess with it, it will sound like a strange person speaking, or something's out of order, something's not right. So we always follow this order for things. And yes, when it comes to adjectives and nouns, we have an order for adjectives, and native people have to understand that foreign people work really hard to get these rules, to finally speak English or even Portuguese. I always say to students, I always tell my students that we are very lucky that we are born in Brazil, that we were born in Brazil and we speak Portuguese, because Portuguese is really hard. We have lots of rules. We have lots of words for one verb only. And English is so much easier than that. But we have these secrets in both languages. Well, guys, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this little piece of knowledge about how hard it is for us foreign people to speak English. And I invite you to listen to this podcast tomorrow at 10 o'clock live about soccer here, the teams in Natal. And next week on Friday at 7 about other subjects. Saturday at 2 we talk in English. And on Sunday the traditional podcast about soccer. Okay? That's it. See you there.